Hello everyone and welcome to another Warleader PvP video. Today I'm going to be showing you some 1 vs 1s from update 5.2 versus various melee classes. So let's go ahead and dive in. First up is Dupree. I run into Dupree over here near the slug pits. He's off at the very back end of the slug pits in front of Burglar. Run into him and I just go ahead and deploy the banner and go at it. Notice I do not have Intimidating Presence on right now. That is because it just expired. And I have not actually refreshed it. I haven't noticed it. I will refresh it a little bit later on in this fight. But I do have Delving Boosts up, so I'm fairly confident in my ability to take him down. Even though Dupree is a martial traded champion, and he could go into glorious stance and be throwing out bubbles like nobody's business. As it is, he's already thrown out a number of bubbles, but I feel fairly confident that I can do quite a bit to him. Also note that he has the Outnumbered buff. That is approximately 14% mitigation on melee range tactical. So the damage source mitigations, which allows Freeps to double dip on their mitigations. But here we have a Reaver and a Ward. And with these two guys showing up, Dupree doesn't stand a chance. Now, because this was not a formal challenge 1 vs 1 with the bounce up and down, I don't hold back, I just keep on going after him. If I had challenged him to a fight more formally, then I would stop attacking him and let him go, but I did not, and so he gets no mercy. That's just how I roll. So I come back, and he comes back too, and go ahead and do an actual formal challenge, and away we go. Now I did go ahead and use Call the Shadow with Black Speech there. That's because I just want to work on getting damage done. I know this is going to be a pretty long fight because the way champions run, and particularly martially traded champions, and also because he does have that Outnumbered buff, so that's just going to make the fight even more prolonged. So this is not going to be over very quickly, it's going to be a slugfest. Now, I was using Defensive Aura at first because I wanted to gauge how much damage he's actually putting out. And once I saw he really wasn't hitting all that hard, I went ahead and swapped over into Aura of Command, and now I'm just going to be putting a lot more damage on him. Also, I did wait until he had used a cooldown, I believe, and then I dropped Banner of Terror so that I could cap the amount of damage that he was actually getting with his boost there. I think he hit Controlled Burn, I didn't quite see. Maybe I just dropped it because I had it, I don't really remember right now, and I wasn't paying attention to his buff bar. As you can see, the fight is progressing fairly stackly. I'm just using mobile meleeing, mostly keeping it around my banner, just to keep myself in a fairly decent reference point, and so I don't lose the buff. And just keep moving around, keep my heals up, keep on hitting with shouts whenever they come up, tossing in melee attacks whenever I can. Notice he is walking backwards here. I am shadowing right behind him. Unfortunately, I was a little bit too close on his character model for a little bit of that, so he was still able to actually do damage, but I'm definitely outmaneuvering him in terms of control of how I'm strafing and everything. I'm getting on his back, he's not getting on mine, I get on his. Of course, I'm not able to stay on his back the entire time, so he is still putting out damage. More and more bubbles. Notice there, I did go ahead and, even though I'm in Brawler stance, I just decided that I'd rather get off some health right there, so I stopped and actually went ahead and inducted out the heal. That is something that you can always find time to stop and induct out a heal if you created a gap. And don't worry about switching stances all the time. Sometimes you just need to do it. Now, unfortunately, I'm very low on power. My power pot is off cooldown. And I really should have switched over to Commander stance back when I had about 400 power left so that I could manage it properly. Instead, I'm stuck in Brawlers at the bottom of my power pool, and he still has 4.5k and bubbles. And the bubbles are what's going to be what's going to slow this down, because there goes one more of them. Now, without the Outnumbered buff right now, he would currently be at approximately 2,000 health, being generous. More likely he'd be somewhere between 1.2 and 1.4, possibly even lower, because of the ability to pump through the bubbles as well, and I'm not really keeping track of that. But he would be getting very, very close to being dead right now, And so that would really change the dynamic of this entire fight. And I've popped my power pot, but once again I have failed to go into commander's stance to actually tank out his damage and everything. And that is probably going to cost me, well, that is going to cost me the fight right now. But if we were fighting on a more even keel without the Outnumbered buff, I would have already killed him by this point. I did get him down to 3,000 a little while ago, and with the amount of damage that's been mitigated by the 14% everywhere, I would have easily had a couple more thousand and could have already finished him off. Anyway, I realized my mistake there when I never went into commander stance, and I come back and say, I can take him this time. And so away we go once more. And notice he still has that outnumbered buff, so that is still going to be swaying the fight even more in his favor. Personally, I don't really care about if they got the outnumbered buff or not for the most part. I'll still fight usually. It's just kind of a, it's going to be a tougher fight, and well, they're all giddy about their extra 20% infamy, glory, whatever, depending on who's got it. But usually I don't pay a whole lot of attention to it, except for when the fight ends up being a lot closer, like the last one this one's going to be, because then it really does make the difference between winning and losing the fight. Notice this time he is staying in a much smaller area, and he's actually doing a bit better with his movement. I've taken a whole lot more damage. Not totally sure why that is. I think he might have popped his controlled burn there, and then I dropped my Banner of Terror, so we actually did it properly. But in any case, I took a lot more damage than I did last time in the opening stage there. I'm actually having to induct out some heals right now from Brawler stance. But I do not want to drop into Commander stance until I get much lower in my power pool, because I can still effectively keep myself up in Brawlers, and I do a lot more damage in it. The only real danger is that Brawler stance is not good for being at the bottom of your power pool, because you need a lot more power to keep on healing yourself as you work on getting Power of Fear buffs to pop off that Crack the Whip and keep on pumping out that Brawler stance, quit whining and fight. Otherwise, you need to be in Commander stance so that you're getting that extra juice from your heals, and that allows you to actually go a little bit longer from a single heal, so you actually get enough power for your next heal, and that's why that works out so well. Anyway, I am keeping an eye on my power bar and also my health bar, so fairly soon here, no, I already did it just a moment ago, dropped in Commander stance, so now this is fully into the grind and the slog, and we will continue to go at this with me in Commander stance and him trying in vain to kill me for a while. Now I'm going to go ahead and wait for the Quit Whining and Fight to come off cooldown, because I really want to get a lot more health out of that Power of Fear that I had right there. I want to recover, get above the 10,000 mark right now, instead of being underneath it, so that's why I held off and didn't use the Crack the Whip there. I can pretty much always get Crack the Whip off against a champion the way that he's fighting, but Quit Whining and Fight is another kettle of fish usually. And notice he has used a lot fewer bubbles this time around, but he's also getting a lot more crits, doing a lot more 2,000 damage hits on the, I believe he's using the improved Seeking Blade and those relentless strikes and such, really trying to put the boot on me. But the other thing that you gotta remember is I'm doing a bit less damage right now, and he's also doing a lot more bracing attacks this time around, so he's using that to keep himself floating, but still is running out of health here. Once again, he's got that extra 14% from the Outnumbered buff, and without that he would be a lot closer to my health levels right now. Instead of being 1,000 ahead of me, he would probably be 1,000 behind me, or would have been for a moment there. And psychologically, I mean, having that much less health, it really does make a difference, and oftentimes people start to play a bit more defensively, and at that point, it really does change the dynamic of the fight and allows you to actually do a lot better. Now, I'm not totally sure that fight I would have won it or anything, but I definitely would have done a lot better if I had things more in my favor. So, challenge Kilganian next, because he's the other champ over here. He's already popped Controlled Burn, so I want to get this Banner of Terror down very soon here. I'm not sure why I haven't dropped it yet, I'm just trying to get some heals off. There we go, Banner of Terror is now down. And so I'm going to just be doing a DPS race for the moment here. I don't know why I have Defensive R on. I'm probably just trying to gauge how hard he's hitting. The answer to that is very, very hard. I suspect he's probably a red line trained, so single target damage. But there took some very nasty crits. Got dropped very, very far. But he's also taking a lot of damage. And once again, that annoying buff made a huge difference there. But the other thing is just that he got very lucky with his crits there. Multiple 2,000 plus. And Pilgo decides to challenge me, so Hobbit Burglar. And I really had no idea what to expect. Never had really fought a Golden Burglar before, so count the abilities I get off. So far, that's 1. That's 2 abilities. That is 3 abilities. That is 4 abilities. That's 5. That's 6. That's 7. Well, half. Yes. I got off 7 abilities, and he killed me in that amount of time. That was absolutely horrific. The number of abilities he got off was easily double mine, so he probably got off actually closer to 20 instead of 14. That is just a major problem. In the background right now you can see Hulala, another rank 8 Warleader, who's trying to go after Pilgo as well. He's having about as much luck as I am. Notice he's in commander stance with RF command. He's really fighting that fight totally wrong, in my opinion. That is not the way to try to go about it, and so he doesn't have any better luck at all. Even if he'd been in Brawlers, still wouldn't really have changed anything. Pilgo just, well, in addition to being a globaling burglar and firing off 2.5 to 3 times as many skills as you do, so he's firing off 3 skills to your 1, he was benefiting from that Outnumbered buff again. Here's a guy I really wanted to fight. It's Hearshot. And Hearshot is a spider that I know. He's a friend of mine. And he's also helped out my Guardian on Creep side fairly recently when this video had come out within a week or 2. And so it was very interesting. I was very interested to get a matchup against him and see how this would go. Now Guardian, I'm actually staying a little bit too long in Brawler stance there. But finally I've gotten over to Commander stance. Guardians have always been a fairly decent and even matchup ever since the later stages of Mirkwood, yes. And I've always found that I had a great deal of success against them just because I was able to tank up and just survive them and whittle away their power pool. Once the Guardian is out of power, then that's typically the end of the story. Unfortunately, this Dry God cloak that he's got is making a huge difference, and also his power pots and stuff. He's also getting very lucky with his crits. That is 2 stuns that he's gotten so far, thanks to getting crits on to the King and the other attack that leads up there, whose name escapes me right now. So he has done a lot of damage, and he keeps on replenishing his power pool there. There's a 3rd crit, and there is 1 more power restoration ability, and that gave him quite a bit, and at that point I'm done, because I just cannot keep up with the amount of power that he has restored, and that's the end of it. He just put out too much damage. So that is it for this time around. The main lesson to be learned there is do not fight Freeps when they have the Outnumbered buff, because in times past you can sometimes get away with it and stuff, and for a Freep that's not necessarily very well skilled, very well built as far as gear goes and stuff, it can be a way to level the playing field, a force equalizer. But for Freeps that are actually going to play their class well, have their class well built, they typically already have quite an edge over most play characters in this current time of the game. And letting them have the Outnumbered buff on top of that is really foolish. And yeah, it just doesn't work out well for you at all. Anyway, that is all for this time, and Ugmog is out.